human shield.
Hi everybody. Yeah, I'm afraid so. You are a human shield. Is everybody ready to go? Okay. Welcome. And oh, apparently I'm Claire Monaghan, but we'll have to live with that. Hopefully people
An
will.
improvement.
People will be able to spot the difference. Welcome to the meeting and to the hordes of people online as well. Welcome. Apologies, I believe we only have Damien and Dan standing in his stead, but no other apologies. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes, right. Thank you very much. So thanks for being here, everybody. So before we get going, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for UK Reef, which I thought was absolutely brilliant and a really good opportunity for us all to sort of shout about South Yorkshire, but I think we did it brilliantly, and it was great to be there with you and kind of be all kind of so positive about what's happening in South Yorkshire. There was obviously good announcements around things like Rolls-Royce at the time and other things besides. So yeah, it was really positive. So thank you everybody for engaging. And it's obviously nice to be back for me personally. So agenda item number 2. As members of the board and members of the public will no doubt be aware, we're in the formal pre-election period now in advance of the general election on July the 4th. So on that basis, I'm going to be restricting announcements and comments to 2 very limited items. The first is simply just to confirm to everybody that the Police and Crime Commissioner function has now been transferred to the MCA, with all staff TUPE transferred on the 7th of May. So my thanks to everybody that has been involved in that process, and clearly obviously to Alan Billings for his time as the Police and Crime Commissioner, which he did so steadfastly. And then secondly, members of the board and the public will also be aware that since our last meeting, the transfer of the tram into the MCA took place, and that the delivery of the 100-day plan is now well underway, which includes the rollout of new initiatives such as the more efficient ticketing machines and deep cleaning right across the system. I've been really pleased to see how well the tram transfer has gone. Some of the statistics that I've seen around the number of people that have signed up for the app, 10,000 I think was the last number I had heard. A huge decrease in ticket evasion, fare evasion, and an uptick in revenue as well. So all really good news, long way to go, but clearly a good start. So thank you to everybody who's made that happen so successfully, and for all the support around this table as well for that to take place. On to agenda item number 3, urgent items. I don't believe there are any urgent items for me to report. Item number 4, items to be considered in the absence of public and press. I don't believe there are any that have to be considered in the absence of public or press. Item number 5, declarations of interest by individual members in relation to any item of business on the agenda, other than the standing items of interest. Does anybody have anything else that they would like to report? No? Great, thank you. Item number 6, reports from and questions by members. None have been received in advance of the meeting. Item number 7, receipt of petitions. None have been received in advance of the meeting. Item number 8, public questions. I've been well advised by the monitoring officer. So whilst we have received some questions, or a public question, because we're in the pre-election period, we won't be responding to that publicly today, although we have written back or are preparing a written response for that question. So we will be writing back to the person who has wanted to ask a question, and obviously following the election, we'll be happy to take any public questions that people might want to resubmit. So just simply can't do them in this period, just so people are aware. Item number 9, minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of March. Are members content that the minutes are an accurate record of the meeting? Any corrections? No? Everybody happy? Great. In which case, on to item number 10, which is agenda item Mayor's Manifesto. So this is the report that details the manifesto commitments made by me ahead of the election earlier in May, and an indication of some of what are my short-term priorities. I'm very keen for people to understand kind of just how much importance I attach to that manifesto and the commitments that I have made and the promises on which I have been elected. I was very proud of the manifesto, and also proud to have been supported in that election by 51% of the electorate technically, and legally the most popular mayor in Yorkshire, which was nice to be able to say. Very pleased to be able to say that. No doubt on the strength of the manifesto and the commitments that we've made. So really kind of important, I hope, that people see that for what it is, which is a signal of intent about the direction of travel of the MCA, devolution, and what we're trying to achieve together. It is, I believe, an important part of the plan for the next 4 years is delivering on those commitments. Things like the work that we are doing on health, work that we are doing on transport, bus franchising in particular, the work to improve and extend the tram as well, the work on skills, on jobs, on economic growth, developing and delivering on the investment zone and the commitments around the IZ and advanced manufacturing, all of which are creating a bigger and better economy in South Yorkshire and making sure that opportunity reaches everywhere across South Yorkshire so that people can stay near and go far, and I'm incredibly proud of that. So, are there any comments or questions? Is anybody presenting on the paper? Claire will present, then we'll take questions after that. Thank you.
Thanks, Oliver. So, as Oliver's outlined, just a paper to recap on the manifesto. I won't go into it into huge detail because of the pre-election period, but the Mayor had outlined 6 priorities when he was candidate at 1.1, so safer communities, improving the transport network, a healthier South Yorkshire, supporting and strengthening our communities, a plan for good growth and a cleaner, greener South Yorkshire. And then beneath that at 1.3 there are 10 immediate priorities that have been identified for work. The team here, as you would imagine, are now working up plans on how those things will be developed, and a future report will be brought forward to the board for further discussion with that plan. Due to the integration of the PCC functions and the work that we need to do to further embed the tram, as Oliver's pointed out, what we're suggesting at 2.5 or requesting permission for is the extension of the appointment of the Head of Paid Service, Chief Executive Martin, which is why he stepped out, until the 31st of March next year, and that we will commence the recruitment process for a new Chief Executive in due course later this year. Further kind of discussions about that will happen over the coming months. And secondly, as at 2.6 earlier this year, Steve Davenport, the monitoring officer, advised the Chief Executive that he intended to retire. We've now gone through that recruitment process and a candidate has been identified, so we're also asking the board to endorse the appointment of that new monitoring officer and to extend our thanks to Steve for all his work for the Combined Authority and the Transport Authority over a long career. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, thank you. I think I welcome the emphasis on good growth in the manifesto. I think this is something that was very clear from the Sheffield and South Yorkshire showcase events at UK Reef. It was a clear focus, and I welcome the fact that public transport is recognised in the manifesto as an enabler for good growth. And so connecting people with opportunity, I think, is going to be a focus for us all over the coming years. Improving and extending the tram network, bus franchising, and these are good priorities, big bits of work for us to get into. And I'd just like to say thank you to the team that's been working on tram renewal work over the last few weeks, track replacement, and the new stops that have been rebuilt over the last few weeks. It's gone well, so thank you to the teams that have done that work.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? No, thank you. Okay, in which case, well, before I go through the formal bit, just to add my thanks to Steve. So in the last 2 years, since I've been mayor, there's been a real kind of support, and I've always known that I could trust Steve's judgment, and I think that's really important, and not a given. So, you know, I genuinely appreciate all your work, not just whilst I've been here, but clearly before I arrived. So thank you very much. And it is no indication how far away I'm sat from you, esteem in which I hold you. So recommendations. The board is asked to note the content of this report, receive a further report at a future meeting which sets out work undertaken on plans to deliver the Mayor's manifesto commitments, endorse the proposal to extend the appointment of the Head of Paid Service / Chief Executive for a period up to 31st of March 2025, and approve the commencement of the recruitment process to appoint a permanent Head of Paid Service / Chief Executive at the appropriate moment. 4, endorse the appointment of Rebecca Brooks as Monitoring Officer for the Combined Authority with effect from August the 24th. August 2024. Is everybody agreed? Yes, wonderful, thank you. On to agenda item number 19, if you could ask Martin to rejoin us, please, thank you. This is nominations and appointments, and I will hand over to Steve to take us through the paper.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is our annual paper with nominations for positions on the Audit, Standards and Risk Committee and our Overview and Scrutiny Committee. The paper also provides for our nominations to Transport for the North and the Enhanced Partnership Board. Members, if you can note that the recommendation at 8 for the TFN substitute member should have read Councillor Hunt and not Councillor Reid. So if members can have that in mind when they agree the recommendations. I really just open the report for any further questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Steve? No. Okay, in which case could the board please note and endorse the nominations provided in the appendix. All agreed? Brilliant, thank you. On to agenda item number 12, amended MCA constitution. This is a report that seeks the endorsement of the amendments to the MCA's constitution, but I'll let Steve take us through the paper. We're making him work for his money today.
Thank you, Chair. Members recall it was agreed at the 12th of March meeting that the constitution needs to be amended to reflect the transfer of the PCC functions. This report brings those suggested amendments, which most of the amendments are contained in new Part 7 related to PCC functions, and the idea is we roll over most of their processes and governance into the MCA as a standalone part. There's other amendments related to, in Part 1 to 6, to reflect that PCC transfer, and also to clarify the scrutiny protocol, strengthen scrutiny protocol in line with the government's requirement for scrutiny as well. So really, any questions on the amendments? And open it for any questions.
Any comments or questions?
Just one clarification, and that is the significant corporate governance framework with South Yorkshire Police onwards. It's a significant addition, and can I assume that this is taken simply from the Police and Crime Commissioner processes?
Sorry, Rod, I'm not sure I understood the question.
So we've got significant additions in the Constitution,
yes.
And I just want clarification that the significant one is from the South Yorkshire Police, page 10 onwards. Assume it's taken from the PCC processes?
Yes, we've adapted it as...
Simply a transfer over.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? No. Okay, could I ask that the board endorse the amendments made to the MCA constitution to reflect the transfer of Police and Crime Commissioner functions with effect from the 7th of May 2024 and other minor amendments? Everybody happy? Wonderful, thank you. On to agenda item number 13, please. Annual corporate governance update. This is simply a report providing a summary of key corporate governance activities during the year 24-25. So I'll hand over to Steve again to take us through.
Thank you, Chair. The report on the series of appendices are an update to board on the governance activity undertaken or to be undertaken in next year. They collectively demonstrate the authority's commitment to meeting the standards of good governance set by SIPFA. If I just quickly run through the appendices. Appendices A sets out the reviewed and revised Code of Corporate Governance for 24-25. This document's been considered by the MCA's Audit and Standards Committee before submission to today's meeting. Appendix B, aligned to the review mentioned in Appendix A, sets out the annual governance statement that's published with the accounts of the authority. The outcome of the annual governance review has resolved that governance arrangements during this year were fit for purpose and robust, yet flexible enough to respond to the challenges presented. Again, the draft annual governance statement and linked governance improvement plan have been considered by the Audit, Standards and Risk Committee before coming to today. Appendix C, this is in respect of our risk management framework. 2023-24 has seen significant development in the MCA's risk maturity and its risk management framework, and this has been specifically mentioned in the Chair of Audit and Standards Risk Committee report. The MCA board is asked to note the progress made in embedding the approach to risk management and consider and comment on the risk management dashboard that's presented. Appendix D, this is the Chair of Audit Standards Risk Committee's annual report. I'd firstly like to thank the Chair and the committee member for their time and dedication over the past 12 months. As the report notes, the committee has undertaken a self-assessment and has also developed an action plan off the back of that assessment, which will be taken forward into 24-25. Appendix E sets out the equivalent annual report of the Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. As with the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, as with the Audit Committee, the Overview and Scrutiny Committee has for the first time undertaken a review of their activity and their effectiveness and developed an action plan, which again set out in the appendix. Just to mention that Overview and Scrutiny is seen by the government as significantly important in the context of future devolution, and in 2023 members will recall that the government issued a scrutiny protocol setting out how devolved bodies such as the MCA should develop the scrutiny function and against which the MCA will be judged going forward. Again, I'd like to thank the members of Overview and Scrutiny for their dedicated work during 23-24 and would welcome the new members as per the previous report on nominations. Any questions?
Thank you. Steve, any questions or comments? No? I guess I'd also just like to add my thanks as well to members of Audit Standards and Risk and Scrutiny. Okay, in which case the MCA Board is asked to consider and approve the Code of Corporate Governance as recommended by the Audit Standards and Risk Committee, to consider and approve the draft Annual Governance Statement and Governance Improvement Plan as recommended by the Audit Standards and Risk Committee, to note the progress made in embedding the approach to risk management and to consider and comment on the risk management dashboard, to consider the Audit Standards and Risk Chair's annual report and the action plan at section 6 to address the findings of the Audit Standards and Risk Committee effectiveness survey, to consider the Overview and Scrutiny Chair's annual report and the action plan at section 6 to address the findings of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee's effectiveness survey. Are we all agreed? Yeah, wonderful. Okay, in which case we're on to agenda item number 14, which is the Bus Service Improvement Plan refresh. This is a paper that seeks delegated authority for the approval of the submission to the DFT of the 2024 Bus Service Improvement Plan refresh. But before I hand over to Melanie, I just wanted to make my comments about the way in which this process has been undertaken by the government, because this has been a process which we have been forced to take at no small pace and have been asked to do in what feels like quite a rush, when this government haven't given us, I think, the time and space we needed to actually kind of develop those plans in a sensible way. I'll stop in a second. So I'm slightly frustrated by that, but I think the team have done a fantastic job, and I'm very pleased to see kind of how far it's come in such a short space of time. Melanie, can I hand over to you?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So we've been asked by the Department for Transport to refresh our BSIP plan, which is the Bus Service Improvement Plan. The previous plan was submitted in 2021, and we were told that the funding announcement for this year's BSIP would be released upon the submission of the BSIP plan by the 12th of June. Now, obviously, that will be subject to ministerial approval after the general election, but the plan is that we will submit by the 12th of June. We do still have time to work on the document, finalise the document, but as long as we have a submission by the 12th of June, then we will meet the criteria that's been set out. So we have been working with local partner councils and their officers to pull together the BSIP plan. There's been pushback from all of the MCAs in terms of timescales, and government have released requirements for a minimum viable product, and we will look to submit a minimum viable product plus, so there'll be a little bit more information than is asked for in the minimum, and we're asking for delegated approval to submit that document by the 12th of June.
Thanks, Melanie. Any comments or questions?
Not a question really, it's a statement. The bus services in South Yorkshire are far less than best. More importantly, as representative of Doncaster, they're atrocious, and I'm hearing it day in, day out still. We're doing all we can, and this is down to government not giving us the funding that we require in order to deliver for the people and actually keep people in work, getting our buses to the right place at the right time, and therefore I would hope that we have a substantial increase on what we got, because other than that, they are actually driving bus usage down, not up. And it doesn't go to zero carbon emissions, does it?
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? In which case, can I ask the board to note the progress made on the 2024 BSIP refresh submission and delegate authorities to the Head of Paid Service, Section 73 Officer and Executive Director for Transport in consultation with the Mayor as the Portfolio Lead for Transport to agree the final 2024 BSIP refresh submission once clarification of requirements from DFT are received in light of the general election on the 4th of July. Is everybody agreed? Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Can we move on to item number 15, which is the LVEP Advisory Forum. And we have Andy Gates presenting to us. This is a report that seeks approval from the MCA Board for the establishment of a local visitor economy partnership advisory forum and a draft terms of reference that will guide the work of this advisory forum. Andy.
Thank you, Chair. I think Councillor Hunt's going to just intro this item.
Thank you. Colleagues will remember the South Yorkshire Destination Management Plan has two aims: to generate more and longer visits and spend in the local economy, and to use the visitor economy to continue to develop and enhance the appeal and image of places of South Yorkshire. This is about, the decision today is about seeking approval to establish a new local visitor economy partnership advisory forum and to approve the draft terms of reference for the advisory forum, which will provide strategic direction and leadership to tourism initiatives which will impact across South Yorkshire.
Thank you, Tom. Not a lot more to add to that, really. The paper gives the Chief Exec and Lead Portfolio member the opportunity just to finalise the membership of the Advisory Forum. Officers have been working with colleagues to identify that long list. We just need to finalise and refine it. And then we're intending to launch the forum and the work we've done to date at Magna, a big event in June. And that's it.
Brilliant. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Tom. Any comments or questions? No? Brilliant. Thank you. Okay, could I ask that the MCA Board please approve the establishment of a local visitor economy partnership advisory forum, catchily titled, delegate to the portfolio lead and lead chief exec a final approval and formal invitations to join the advisory forum, and B, flexibility to amend the non-political membership as the work of the forum takes shape to ensure that membership reflects the diversity of and the issues and opportunities that emerge for the visitor economy in South Yorkshire. Approve the draft terms of reference for the advisory forum and note the intention to bring together visitor economy partners and stakeholders from across the region at an event hosted at Magna, Rotherham in July 2024. Has everybody agreed? Perfect, thank you very much. In which case we're moving on to agenda item number 16, which is the mayoral allowance, at which point I'm going to step out and hand over to Chris to just...
Thank you, Oliver. So item 16 on the agenda is the report from the Independent Remuneration Panel, which Steve is going to introduce us.
Thank you, Chair. This item relates to the MCA agreeing the allowance payable to the Mayor. Legislation requires that before an allowance is approved, an independent remuneration panel must make a recommendation following the review. An IRP was established and they have published a report recommending an allowance of £107,000 index linked with a further review in 4 years' time. That report was appended to the report. The legislation allows for the MCA to agree an allowance, and that allowance must not exceed the amount recommended by the IRP. So I'll open it up to the board.
Any comments or questions on any of that? No, just to check those recommendations, then to endorse the establishment, the Independent Remuneration Panel and their reasonable time commitment be remunerated. Number 2, determine the allowance payable to the incumbent Mayor considering the IRP's recommendations. The appropriate allowance payable for the role of South Yorkshire Mayor is 107k, index linked going forward. 3, agree the allowance will be payable from the 7th of May this year, being the date the Police and Crime Commissioner functions transferred to the Mayor. And 4, agree that remuneration will be reviewed again in 4 years' time. Are we content with those? Okay, thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. So on to item number 17, 2023-24 financial outturn and budget update, which will be presented by Gareth.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the budget report for the MCA at the end of financial year 23-24 with a Q1 update for the new financial year. 3 notable issues for the board to recognise. We've hit our highest levels of capital expenditure since the MCA's inception. We hit our highest levels of revenue expenditure since the MCA's inception, and we generated over £20 million in treasury management income from local sources. So this is good news. We're investing at pace into our priorities. We're beginning to hit our straps in terms of the pace at which we get capital programme investment into our communities. The treasury management income has also allowed us to implement the reserve strategy that we agreed back in March, and that places us in a good position to undertake some of the difficult decisions that we'll have in the forthcoming months around bus reform. The Q1 budget has now been reset for known issues, including slippage across capital and revenue activities, whilst the reports also provide an update on the performance of Sheffield, the tram operating company. The Mayor mentioned earlier improved revenue performance and reduced costs that will potentially lower the need for public subsidy over the course of this financial year. So I'll take any questions at that point.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for Gareth? In which case, I guess I just wanted to kind of congratulate the team really on what is a really impressive set of financial returns, and the progress that has been made I think is significant. So congratulations and thank you. So recommendations please. The board note the financial position at the outturn of financial year 23-24, approve the revised budget estimates for financial year 24-25 and approve the movements to reserves as detailed in Appendix B. Is everybody agreed? Yeah, wonderful, thank you. On to agenda item number 18 please, which is Gateway Review, and this will be presented by Lindsay Whisker, and it's a report that outlines the steps in the Gateway Review process and the stakeholder engagement activities and progress that has been made to date to evaluate the investment of Gainshare across South Yorkshire. Lindsay, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much and good afternoon everyone. Just to recap on what the Gateway Review is, it's the national evaluation process that government used to assess how we are allocating and investing devolution investment funding, otherwise known as Gainshare. It's a 5-year period process. It started in April 2020. It concludes in March 2025. We've so far completed 2 of the 3-stage process for the Gateway Review, that being the production of the local evaluation framework, which outlined the 56 Gainshare funded schemes that we are investing in over that time, and the mid-term review, which we concluded just before Christmas, which involved the survey and consultative interviews with stakeholders and partners to obtain their views on how we were investing Gainshare funding, and also the production of 5 evidence papers. We're now coming to the final review stage for that process, which involves updating those 5 evidence papers, as well as producing some case studies on some of the key projects, some of which are involved in some of the districts around the table. Just to let you know that so far the feedback that we've had from the evaluators has been quite positive. They have identified a number of recommendations which we are taking forward in the final review stage and the final set of evidence papers, which will be produced at the end of July. The whole process will conclude with a review of those evidence papers in October, and then a peer review session with the Department for Levelling Up and Housing Communities in January, which some of you will be asked to participate in. So just to let you know that you will be shortly contacted again for your views and comments on how we're spending Gainshare funding. So look out in your inboxes, because we're asking for a little bit more of your time. And thank you to those members who did actually participate in that evaluation process for the mid-term review.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Thank you very much. In which case, can I ask that the board note the feedback received from the national evaluators of the Gateway Review and considers how local authorities and stakeholders should be further engaged in the evaluation of devolution investment funds for the remainder of the Gateway Review period. Is everybody agreed? Brilliant, thank you. On to agenda item number 19, please, which is programme approvals, and Gareth will present the paper, and it's a report that seeks approval from the MCA board for progression of 5 investment schemes, subject to conditions set out in the insurance summaries and the acceptance of 3 grant awards. Gareth, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. So as the Mayor said, we're looking for approval to accept £4.82 million worth of active travel grant. That includes a significant capital grant allocation and a number of revenue capability fund awards. This is good news. Reflects the improved performance around our active travel activity. We're looking for the progression of 3 transport schemes to full approval. This includes a real-time detection priority scheme for bus flows within Barnsley. We're really excited about that. That's new innovative technology. We've also got the Magna Tinsley Active Travel Scheme in Sheffield, which is a really good opportunity to join up a Sheffield Active Travel Scheme with a Rotherham one on the Sheffield Road Cycleway. And then we're seeking approval for an e-cycle pilot scheme as well. I'm really pleased to say that we're also bringing forward the approval for the Tech South Yorkshire scheme, which has been in gestation for a while. This is a really exciting scheme that's led by Barnsley Council on behalf of the MCA. And finally, we're looking for the delegation of approval to the portfolio lead for housing and infrastructure for the progression of one flood alleviation scheme in Fish Lake, Doncaster. So happy to take any questions at that point.
Any comments or questions for Gareth?
Just I really welcome this, particularly the Magna Tinsley Phase 2 scheme. This is good news, and we'll look forward to seeing that progress. And thank you to the teams in local authorities and the MCA who've been working hard to make sure that we've got this funds come in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, I just need to declare an interest. Fish Lake Doncaster is within Doncaster City Council.
Thank you. I think these are some great projects, and it's really nice to see that they're progressing, and obviously very much linked to the last paper that you presented on, which is just to say that we are kind of making significant progress on spending our money and spending it effectively and getting things done, which I think is really, really positive to see. So thank you. Before I go to the recommendations, anything else? No? Everyone happy? Apparently I'm relieved of my responsibility to actually read them out word for word, so I'm just going to ask people to approve the recommendations 1 to 9, which you can all see in front of you. Is that all okay? Yes, okay, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, in which case, on to agenda item number 20, which is education, skills and training approvals. I believe Fliss is going to come and present to us, and this is a paper that seeks approvals linked to the future delivery of existing skills and employability programmes, and approvals to expand delivery of employment support in the region through 2 new nationally funded programmes, Workwell and Universal Support. Workwell in particular was good news, and good to see that the government were funding that. Organisations delivering activity, whether grant funded or procured, are referred to collectively as learning organisations. Over to you, Fliss.
Thank you. Good afternoon, board. So this paper, as the Mayor has set out, has 6 different recommendations that we're bringing to you as a board across all of the education and skills portfolio at the combined authority. So the first area is looking at the allocations, the final allocations for our Adult Skills Fund and also free courses for jobs. These came to the board as an indicative allocations in March. These have remained the same, and so therefore it's seeking approval for the final allocations for the next academic year. We're also looking for approval for the creation of a pre-apprenticeship programme. There is quite a gap at the moment in provision for that lower level entry into skills, and so therefore looking at using some of the reserve funds that we have to create that fund to be able to help our young people get their first step into to further training provision. We also have our annual careers and enterprise company contract that's coming forward, so therefore seeking approval to be able to accept that grant. And as the Mayor's also said, we have £33 million additional new funding into employment support in South Yorkshire. So part of that was through a competitive bid, which we bid and developed on behalf of the ICB, and then also universal support. So it's really good news in how we support, especially that area of economic inactivity. We have a huge swathe of our population who are economically inactive, and looking at real dedicated support in getting those people back into work, but also trying to keep those people who are at risk of falling out of employment to stay in employment too. So there are a number of delegations here, but would welcome questions on these recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Fliss. Any comments or questions for Fliss? No? Steve, was there anything you wanted to add?
No, other than to say the Workwell is a really positive outcome moving forward in terms of employment support. And obviously, as we hopefully move down the pathways route, that'll be one of the contributors to that program.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Okay. Other comments or questions? In which case, can I ask the board approves and notes the recommendations 1 to 6 in the paper? Has everybody agreed? Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. In which case, on to the final item, which is agenda item number 21, which is simply the delegated authority report from Martin.
Thank you, Mayor. Board, this is the regular report covering the period from March through to May 24 of decisions made under the Officer Delegation Scheme, and seeking your approval to that report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Panic is. Thank you. Okay, can I ask that the board note the decisions and delegations made? Everybody agreed? Wonderful. Is there any other business anybody would like to throw into the mix at the last moment? No, wonderful. In which case, everybody, thank you for your time and thank you for all the work that's gone into preparing the papers. We'll see you again in a couple of months. Thank you.